what are we standing up for? The ability, the freedom to do what's right as God defines that right.
God's the ultimate author of liberty.
We don't want government to stand between us and our freedom to do what is right.
Is this it? Is it World War III? Is the nuclear showdown about to take place in the world? Will this make things heat up elsewhere? Man, what's just happened in the last 24 hours between Israel and Tehran is something the whole world should be watching. In fact, when the Bible Nation started, we produced a magazine. And our very first magazine and our very first theme of topic was this very issue. For almost 20 years, we've been talking about the nuclear issue. Go ahead and put that on the screen for us, editor, if you would.
Wielding the nuclear sword.
Wielding the nuclear sword. There's a nuclear bomb. There's the Iranian flag. Then that was the then Iranian and Israeli leaders. And that was an issue 20 years ago that had birthed up and we said was going to be. And somehow it's kind of, for almost the last 20 years, it's just kind of kept stirring. The waters kept stirring around. And but all of a sudden now here we are. We are at a shooting war between these two nations and taking out each other's nuclear capacities. And so this is very serious. I'm Doug Levesque from the Bible Nation Society here with Jason Georges and Jesse Levesque and Jackson Levesque. And this is episode 10 of our podcast season. We're glad you've joined us. Remember, the best culture is a Bible culture. It's proven and it works.
3, 2.
Well, does Iran have a nuclear program for peaceful means, or does it have a nuclear program for war and the destruction of Israel? That's the question. What do you guys think? Is it peaceful, or is it intended to stop the West or destroy Israel?
Well, there's been any country that's proven that it's run primarily on ideology. It's Iran.
Right.
So Iran is not influenced by economic factors.
Right.
They're not like Saudi Arabia or the EAU or Dubai.
Yeah.
You know, areas in the Middle East that are very much economically driven and have found ways to prosper. And although they are Islamic, money talks.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to threaten those things.
Yeah.
They're not for their citizenry. Not many people, Iranians, it's not good to be, I'm not saying Iranian, it's not good to live in Iran right now.
Right.
And so their whole existence of the Shah and everyone else has been death to Israel and a death to America.
So their true ideology of Shia Islam is at this point really wanting to destroy the Jew, Israel. And they want to be the purveyors of an empire, that goes back, 1,000 years. And so for them then to say, no, we just want nuclear power for peaceful means is talking out both sides of your mouth. And anybody that has an ounce of understanding really does get that. So that question that, of course, the media talks about with this supposed interest in the truth, right, and letting all things be equal, is really kind of a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of baloney. The Iranians truly have been pursuing this nuclear issue for at least 20 years, and missiles and the ability to, put those missiles on the spot. And Israel and the West has done a good job at kind of spinning the wheel and stopping them, but here we are. They're days, weeks, months away from actually delivering 20 nuclear warheads. What would it take to get rid of Israel? Just basically Tel Aviv, getting bombed. I mean, that would be it. And so Israel has decided to act. Trump was scaring the Israelis because he's actually talking about an American-driven deal that would help Iran, make money and be peaceful, but would not include the nuclear warfare, nuclear bomb situation. In fact, we still have guys that are going to show up there this weekend and negotiate, which it's funny because Iran tried to respond to this with 100 drones and they were all shot down. Their best bet might be to take whatever American handout.
And half of them shot down by the Jordanian Air Force.
Yes.
So it's not Iran, and it's not 20 years ago where it was the entire Middle East against Israel.
Yeah.
Some of these other countries are now more invested in peace.
Yes.
Which ultimately, why do we focus on this? Countries in the Middle East invested in peace, moving towards peace, is prime for a great peacemaker.
Yes.
A truce.
Yes.
And so that's kind of that's where our prophetic eschatological antennas start to go up, because we realize, wait a second.
Yeah.
First of all, we have movement. It's like when you play a game of pool. I can't shoot pool very well.
Right.
And so if
Billiards,
right, for you, refined. It used to be a gentleman's game, right?
Right.
If the shot's not easy and you don't know what else to do, you just hit the cue ball as hard as you can and
Fruit basket upset.
right,
Yeah.
see what happens. And that's every time that the status quo gets upheaved in the Middle East. What is the new status quo going to be? That's really the intriguing question.
Yeah.
How far is Israel going to go? At what point? And the question today, after day one and the lack of a substantial response by Iran, and we really want to think about it, Iran has not had a substantial response to any provocation.
Yeah.
So Israel's been poking them,
Yeah.
and Iran hasn't, other than through its proxies, but Israel has decimated them. So this is really a 1, 2, 3. Hamas is gone. They don't have that arm anymore. They don't have Hezbollah anymore. So now Israel's like, we have you a little bit checkmate, and it's really mano a mano. What can you do?
Yeah.
And there is some speculation even already that Iran's retaliation capabilities is not as high as
what anybody
as anyone thinks. Yeah.
Jesse, you had put together a good little outline for us today. Appreciate that. And the proxy war was always part of what we've heard for the last 20 years, right? And what we were afraid of, what Israel, the United States, whatever's afraid of. And I think the Israelis boast too much about their capabilities. They have them, and they're the best, and everybody talks about that. But they need to give God credit.
Yeah.
Because undoing Hamas, undoing Hezbollah, undoing the Houthis, and now being able to attack in this kind of frame, you've got to give God glory. You sitting in Israel in unbelief is part of this prophetic sense where it brings on a time of Jacob's trouble, not the world's trouble, but time of their own trouble, because they're trying to flex their own muscle and not recognize God. And so, I love Israel, love the Jew, but they need to get on their faces before God. And not just these black hat so-called messianic types, because they won't even fight. They're just waiting for God to do everything. God partners with us in action, and so their society is so dichotomized. It's so split that it kind of the army guys that are really doing it, they don't want to give the black hats God credit, and the black hats don't want to give man credit. So they got their own identity issues going on there. But it is amazing that 1, 2, 3, and it's been what, 400 days? Has it been 400 days or
What's in Gaza?
Of war? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 400 days, but they
Over a year.
more or less, Gaza's decimated. They're just trying to, they have an ant problem now. They just trying to get the ants out from underground, sort of thing. The Hezbollah thing is absolutely the stuff. There needs to be a full-scale miniseries on how they put the beepers and got all the leadership, and then pretty soon the next guys that stepped up, they did the walkie-talkies, and then the next guy said, "We don't want beepers or walkie-talkies. We'll just pass notes, or something like that."
Which continues to build the mystique of Mossad.
Yes.
And of course, Mossad is half mystique.
Yes.
It is the half of their bravado is the mystique of what you don't know what we're doing.
And looking at this operation, Mossad planted bombs years ago that went off. Mossad was in country, like on the ground, looking at anti-air things with shoulder-mounted rockets and drones. They had infiltrated militarily in that regard. And just like Ukraine had snuck in those trucks to get all the way across Russia and blow up, bombers and stuff, the Israelis did that. They had trucks moved in. It's almost like Zelensky and them. They don't talk, or they pretend to not talk, but they're on the same page, and they're using the same
What was the
MO as far as they snuck trucks in that were able to launch stuff. Yeah.
what was the piece of intelligence, or what do you think the reason was for them to act so swiftly now? Do you think it was dealing with Hamas and Hezbollah first, or what was it? Do you know what they?
I think they've
give
always
them the
played
urgency.
for time, and they're going to do it. But I think now they thought, we don't want whatever Trump is left. He's right. He's conservative. He's for, I think they did not want this weekend to take place. I think they'd come to, this is it, because we don't need some, anything that it's now's the time. And so I think there were some red lines in their factor of math.
Because that Iran's not going to be totally upfront with this IAEA, this International Atomic Energy Agency, in reporting what they're doing. Yeah. So you wonder what kind of intelligence they got, if there was any urgent
the IAEA
new stuff
really
or
been pro-Israel, and yet it came out and said, "Yeah, we're getting close."
The levels of enrichment that they're allowed for civilian use are like 3%. And they're up at like 60 and 80. They're finding different
and
things.
They've been saying for 20 years, this is our red line, this is our red line, this is our red line. So they're there. They had to this is it. Yeah. And so.
Well, that kind of combined that with, so the reason for the justification in this moment, like why today? Yeah. Why not wait a couple more weeks for peace treaties?
Pentecost was this weekend, so they got through that holiday.
There's always a prophetic scale behind running everything, right? So there is the greater God holds the king's heart in his hands, and there's the moving of the prophetic clock.
Right.
But the justification that they're utilizing is that Iran was within weeks, i.e. maybe even 15 days of being able to have enough weaponized uranium and the ability to deliver it.
Yes.
And so they said, we're there. Now, they also have said they already have 15. So are we there or are we not there? But part of that goes with the mystique of Mossad. Do you notice very few people ever question Israeli intelligence?
Right.
Because they're all, Mossad must know something. Yeah. So Israel could say anything. Israel could say they have 30 bombs, and they might not have anything.
It's about controlling the rhetoric and the storyline and the vocabulary.
Now, Trump, supposedly, he's trying to deny all, this is not an American insistence. I think what he's trying to do is remain a quasi-honest broker at the table, the negotiating table. And he realizes in order to strike the deal, you can't be on one side or the other. You got to stay in the middle. Yeah. So apparently there's some internal conflicts within the administration on this. We could talk about that here in a second. Yeah. But when Trump was asked about this last night, he basically, just to summarize, he gave 3 sentences of, we didn't authorize this. We didn't know about it, but we didn't authorize it. It's not for us. We want no peace.
Don't shoot at us.
Yeah. Well, you better not shoot us. But then he throws in this 4th sentence because the Fox News guy asked him this questions, and he was, it's a fair question. Let me answer the question. And he goes, we want peace. This is going to make negotiations harder, or maybe it'll make it easier.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I'm like, wait a second. Well, why is Trump putting this other flag out there of go ahead, decimate them, so that when we get them to the negotiating table, now they're negotiating for survival.
That's what I said. I said, they launched 100 drones when they maybe could do more things with even in-house terrorism places, terror cells. Well, maybe because they know our best bet is Sunday with Witkoff and the Trump administration. So maybe they're waiting to do that. I think it's amazing. Let's talk about the targets in particular. So the Natanz, there's 3 different nuclear facilities. One was enrichment, one was missile stuff, and then one was, I don't know if it was fissile storage or whatever. Plus then they basically cut the head off their army. They got the top 4 guys that run.
Got the chief of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards, a powerful branch of the country's armed forces.
Huge. Yeah.
Other senior military figures and several nuclear scientists. Now that IAEA organization, of course, put out warnings saying you should never attack a nuclear plant, or right? Because of radiation and stuff like that.
But that's also been in the reporting.
Yeah.
Don't worry, no radiation came out. No, they're trying to.
Yeah.
We knew what we were doing.
But of course now Iran is Iran's foreign minister says this is a declaration of war. And they also are looping the U.S. in, and they're saying, this is what he said. He called Israel's operation acts of aggression and said that the U.S. government, as the primary patron of this regime, will also bear responsibility.
Yes. Well, when Trump got in, the first thing he did is he gave them bunker busters. People saying they don't have bunker busters, they need us. But we did give them bunker busters, and they did use them in this operation. 200 jets. Number one, you have 200 jets that work. Number, you have 200 pilots that are game. You can refuel them. You can handle the operation of communications and all that over that distance of time. You can get them there and back safely without getting shot down. And they delivered over 300 munitions. Go ahead.
I'll read some of the other key figures that were killed just because I think it's important.
Yeah.
So Hassan Soleimani was the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards.
Yes.
Ghulam Ali Rashid, the commander of the Qatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters. Mohammed Bagheri, I regret trying to read all these names. Chief of Staff of Iran's Armed Forces.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're dead. They don't care now.
And then,
You're not offending them.
and then some of their chief scientists, the former head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, to name one, the head of their nuclear engineering. So like the big dogs they got of their program.
They
and some of their
cut the head off the snake. That's what they said they were going to do. And those guys are now in Valhalla with 70 virgins.
Well,
I'm
Trump,
mixing metaphors there.
Trump kept saying, there's some people not alive anymore to negotiate. Like, that's part of his tactic. It's like, we're telling you to come to the table because you might not get a chance anymore. And what we mean by that is you're going to be dead.
Yeah.
And so...
Can you imagine the next guy in Iran, the Ayatollah, calls you and goes, hey, will you take this position? Are you like, yeah, what does it pay? No, you're like, nope.
get your own cell phone plan. Yeah.
Yeah, are you going to give me guards? I mean, that hasn't helped them. So...
Well, it's always interesting how Israel doesn't only attack equipment capability, it attacks people.
Yeah.
Israel, like their biggest threat is not the missiles. The biggest threats are the people that know how to make the missiles.
Yeah.
And so that's what they attack because Iran doesn't know that naturally. So think about an Iranian rocket scientist is someone who is probably early in his life had some foreign training.
Yeah.
And so their culture doesn't produce that naturally.
Right.
They don't just bring up, so there's a huge investment. There's a scarcity of them. There is not in Iran a private economic value to them. So they only work for the government.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
They're actually
very
setting
high
it back years just by doing that.
Right. By killing these guys. Yeah. And then in those societies where sharing information is not part of the cultural norm, but rather it's more of the kickback, what corruption.
Yeah.
You hold on to information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they always attack people.
Yeah.
If you notice, that's their thing. We killed so and so. We killed so and so. And we killed so and so.
Yeah. No, and it's been masterful that they've done that because apparently there were some civilians killed.
Yeah.
But I mean, not many for all that they've done.
Are scientists technically civilians?
So let's
Not if
talk
you're
about this.
part
now.
of the nuclear program.
So you're
not.
Iran. You're waiting for this weekend. You're going to negotiate, complain, and put your complaints out. The media is going to do half the work for you, et cetera, et cetera. Israel might keep dropping stuff if they can. So how do you respond? Do you think that how many Iranian terrorist cell personnel are in the United States? 50? Would you say there's 50 guys that are willing to do whatever they need to do, even if it means arrest, loss of freedom, death? Let's say there are 50.
Sure.
I don't think that's an extent because for 20 years we've been doing this.
Yeah.
So let's say there's 50
And
guys.
the border's been wide open for 4 years.
Let's say that they got funding from China and Russia and they've got money in their pockets so they can influence immigrant people. They can influence LGBTQ people. They can influence whoever they want to influence, right? So let's say you got another 1,000 people. So you got 50 people, you got 1,000 people, you got funding, you got an organization. What then does the United States need to harden in order to protect against what they could do? My number one thought is water supply. Because if you could really hurt the water supply, you shut everyone down. You can't live but for 3 days without water. If everybody runs the store and buys water, that's done. So inside of a week, you could really put a kibosh with water supply. And our water supplies aren't really that protected. I think maybe electric disruption because we are so electronic. A lot of people have solar stuff now, but I would say that's 10% of the population. Not many people.
Not enough to make a difference.
Not enough to really shut, to stuff down. If you could do things where you're shutting down car engines too. What's that called? An EMP type bomb? Dirty bombs will do that kind of stuff. nuclear infrastructure, right? The nuclear base, the nuclear things, those are probably somewhat protected, but are they protected enough against, 50 people driving cars all at once against it? And is it possible to even do something? What about disease weaponization? What about COVID type 2? What about just 50 guys getting 1,000 people to show up with a pistola at every Walmart or gas station or kindergarten or ball game, right? The NBA finals or something. So what if they could do a little bit of all of that or whatever? So
yeah, I mean hostages, because we have a different ethic than them.
Yes,
and
hostages.
And human life is a lot more important than the way they treat it. So yeah, hostages, get some hostages.
Yeah, Jackson?
If they do that, what do you think? Do you think it would need to be paired with Russia, China, in an invasion force? Because I know it would hurt, but then it would also, especially while Trump's in office, ensure the destruction.
I don't think Russia and China would invade us,
right,
or even shoot nukes at us. I think that'd be last. But I do think the funding an organization of insurrection that didn't have their name on it, that they would be part of that. But I think China would say, now's our time for Taiwan. This is going on here, this is going on here. I think Russia would say, now we're going to go to the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia. Now's our time to do this. So I do think that's why I said this is a watershed event that's going to speed up events. Because if everything's sitting here, this thing in particular has the ability to go nuclear fast.
So even in the things that you mentioned there, even the water supply, our country's so big and so vast, so diversified.
Yeah.
Even if you took out the water supply of one city, it would still be nuisance level.
Yeah.
As far as the economic and military might of the United States. Plus, it would not be in their interest to be directly associated with some sort of attack like that, because now you have Pearl Harbor. Now you have 9/11.
Now we hate you and we're going to
right. And now when you have the will of the American people behind war, that the most deadliest time, the time America is the most deadliest. It was when the citizenry is united in the war effort. You can't stop us then.
Yeah.
So you don't want that prediction. I'll throw one out here.
Yeah.
We've yet to answer the question of who's been trying to kill the president. And Israel, it would be in Israel's best interest to release some information now that the kid in Butler, Pennsylvania, was funded by the Iranians.
Right.
I mean, if you want to get Trump on your side right now, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Listen, it doesn't have to be true. You just got to make it up.
Well, and like I said, own the storyline.
Right. It doesn't have to be true.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, because can't believe anything. But I'm saying you convinced the president that guy was. I mean, can we say Gulf War I?
Yeah.
That there was a little bit of some Texas justice of George Bush Jr.
Yes.
Being upset.
Yeah.
Taking it personal.
These younger guys don't really know about that.
No, that Saddam Hussein tried to kill his father?
Bush Sr. was attacked. There was definitely an assassination attempt. So Bush Jr. got in, and of course, right away, whatever the storyline is, we're going back. And by the way,
he was hell-bent to
what
kill
happened
Saddam.
to Building 7 is back in the news. Did you know that? The fifth plane?
Now we've gone full circle.
No, the fifth plane. So that's a future episode. On
well, that is a good thing to mention. Is there's plenty of people in these Islamic states that have plenty of motive to hate America, whether their dad was killed or whoever, family killed in a past conflict.
And really, the Bible says this is going to happen. Israel's almost 80 years old, and Jerusalem is a cup of trembling to the whole world. Right? That's what's going on. If Iran shoots a missile and it hits the Temple Mount, remember the last time they had pictures of those missiles coming in over the Temple Mount. Mm-hmm. So Israel could use that too, right? So boy, that would set some stuff off and just bring prophecy all that much closer into mentality. I think you had a prediction, Pastor Georges. I think the one I have is Damascus is going to be gone in a day, and the king left. This new guy's taken over. Israel basically in 3 weeks destroyed every tank, jet, plane, army, and then took over, hundreds of acres of property around the borders to make sure that they had the high ground, so to speak. And then this guy is, wearing an American suit, going around to everyone saying, "Help me." Israel actually has kind of reached out and determined we weren't going to do this and we will do this. But I think Damascus has to play. It has to play into this because Iran has to have a forward base. It has to have a den of snakes. And so I think we should be looking at, in the response, what role does Damascus play as far as prophecy is concerned. As far as America is concerned, the Bible, this is a great time for us to talk about the Second Amendment and bearing arms and the militia, well-regulated militia. Because this sort of thing, they can send National Guard to the cities to cover the capitals. They can send the Marines to anything that's large, but the rest of us have to protect our gas station, our food supply, our water supply, all this kind of stuff. And listen, 90% of America has a bunch of redneckish people. It doesn't matter if they're white, black, Mexican, whatever, that love our country and that maybe we know how to shoot or we don't know how to shoot, but we have a weapon, and by golly, we're not going to let anyone mess up our water supply, sort of thing. So, like I said, this is a watershed moment because it speeds up that kind of mentality, that kind of action.
All the way down to the guy who took a shot at Trump.
Yeah.
And how people saw this kid walking around,
Yeah.
and so even big armed guard, like armed citizenry, but an aware citizen.
Yeah, just saying, hey, stop, or you're not going to do that. I remember right after 9/11, I was flying, in those times, and right after 9/11, I got on a plane, and there was two. I don't know what they were, but they were speaking a foreign language, and of course, to me, they were Arab terrorists speaking Arabic, but they were talking loud, and everybody else on the plane was like uncomfortable. Everybody was like, what do we do? And I looked at the guy sitting in front of him. We looked at each other and went like this, and I just leaned over and said, hey, you need to speak English today. No, don't want to hear that again. So I was a jerk that day, but it was like you guys aren't aware of how the rest of us feel, and the other guy's like, I got your back. So like we were ready to do a let's go moment, if something was happening there. But that's how people felt. And so you stir that up, like Pastor Jason said, you stir up that monster in Americans and that clique, we do things, and it is ideological, but it's also patriotic. It's also fueled from different things. So there's a couple of coverages, and there's a couple of predictions. This thing is hot right now. That's why we're talking about it. But remember, the Bible does say, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We got many missionaries, many Christians in all of these regions: Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Israel.
Our friend Jim Scudder's in Israel right now.
Is he really? Yeah.
They were filming episodes of In Grace.
And I think
they can't get out.
They can't get out because they closed the airspace. And so, but listen, Jim Scudder, he's in the right spot.
Oh, no.
He's going to get some great footage. Jim's a go-getter on that kind of stuff, so we can do that. So, hey, this is an exciting showdown. It's even the secular media is using the term World War III. It's on its way. Military folks from both sides, clearer heads from both sides, are saying this just smacks of something strong. So I would say, folks, take a little bit of time to prepare your soul. Take a little bit of time to prepare yourself and your family, even for disruption, right? And if someday you can't drive somewhere because there's disruption, it's okay. People have had worse, and so disruption. But local New Testament churches need to be on the right side of all the issues as well, and they need to be trusting Christ. And hopefully lost folks see this, and they hear Armageddon, they hear apocalypse, and they know this is getting weird. This is heaven, hell, demons, and angels. They feel that way. It's a great opportunity to say, well, the Bible said these things were going to happen. They are going to come to pass. And so we don't have a fear in the same regard because we have Jesus. And so we're coming up on big events. We've got Father's Day. We've got parades. We've got all kinds of events. And we don't make them all prophetic. We have to have an ear for people's fears on those particular things. A great opportunity for people to fear God and to trust Jesus Christ. So, gentlemen, I'm going to give whoever wants the last word.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Remember, folks, the best culture is a Bible culture. It's proven and it works.